When I think of a Cadillac V-Series model, smoky burnouts, tire shredding power, and a rambunctious V8 exhaust noise quickly come to mind. However, Cadillac felt that their V-Series models were simply too out of control for the everyday consumer, which is why they've decided to somewhat dilute the V-Series model with a new series of vehicles that have significantly less power. Right behind me is the all-new Cadillac CT5-V, a replacement for the old CTS V and CTS, and unlike the previous generation models, this new V-Series version has a 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 as opposed to the supercharged V8 that we found in the previous generation. It's designed to go head-to-head with Audi's S4, BMW's M340i, and of course the Mercedes-AMG C43. So the big question I want to answer, with its all-new look on the inside, on the outside, its new powertrain, and of course available all-wheel drive, does this new 2020 CT5-V have any of the fire that we found in the previous CTS V? That's what we're here to find out. So previously, whenever I have a Cadillac V-Series model to show you, I'm really excited to open up the hood and show you what's powering the thing. Now, unfortunately, of course, as I mentioned, GM has replaced the old 6.2-liter supercharged V8 with a new 3-liter twin turbocharged V6. Now, of course, there is the supercharged V8 coming for the Blackwing model. That's going to be for a different review. This is the model that has slightly more power versus the standard 3-liter. It's kind of like a high output version. It makes 360 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque. Remember, it's got direct injection. It's got 2 turbos. This is all about engine downsizing, and it competes with something like an Audi S4, which offers 349 horsepower. Now, it's got a new transmission on this new CT5. It's a 10-speed automatic transmission. It's Cadillac's own design, General Motors' own design, and rear-wheel drive is going to be standard. My tester has a $2,000 option to get all-wheel drive, which again makes this thing a little bit more comfortable, not quite as crazy out on the road as the old CTS V. Now, this particular one here weighs right around 3,900 pounds. The CT5 also has a lot of aluminum. It's a pretty lightweight car considering how big this thing is. And Cadillac says you should get to 60 in around 4.6 seconds. And fuel economy, because this is now a smaller engine, is rated to get 17 in the city, 25 on the highway. Premium gas, of course, is recommended. Now, closing the hood and looking at the styling of this thing, you can see Cadillac didn't really take too many risks with the styling, but I'd have to say that this is a pretty handsome looking car. The old CTS was definitely handsome, and the CT5 has the newer design language, of course. This is the art and science look, probably moving into like 2.0 now. Full LED headlights are going to be standard equipment. My particular tester here has an optional LED turn signal. You have that signature LED light pipe that goes along the top of the headlight down to the lower part of the front fascia. It's a continuous light. There's no fog lights on this model, but as you can see with the V-Series model, they give you that Cadillac mesh style green grille with the green accents and with the black accents. In fact, with this green color, Cadillac calls it evergreen metallic for $625. I think this is a handsome looking car. I'm really happy to see green is making a comeback, so it's really great to see Cadillac introducing different kinds of colors on this vehicle. Now, of course, I showed you guys a CT4V a couple of weeks ago. This is the CT5V, so it's technically a little bit bigger. In fact, it's about 10 inches longer versus the CT4 at 194 inches long. This is bigger than competitors like an Audi S4, BMW M340i, and a C43. This is more like a BMW 5 Series, but it's priced like a 3 Series. So Cadillac's always kind of had a tweener, and it continues with the CT5, but I think it has really nice proportions. Now, the wheels, I think the wheels are a little bit weak. These are the standard wheels that you get on the V-Series model. You can also upgrade to a 20s. These are a 19. You get 245s in the front and then staggered with 275s at the rear. The 20s, of course, are like a $2,000 option. The Vs all come standard with Brembo performance brakes, and for $600, you can paint the calipers either red or blue. My tester just has the standard black painted calipers, which I think look a little bit too plain. I would definitely want the wheels to be painted, or the calipers to be painted. Now, my tester is also missing the panoramic sunroof. That's like a $2,000 upcharge, or you can get the platinum package. And then when you look at the rear styling here, I don't like the way this C-pillar kink looks like. It kind of reminds me of a Chevrolet Cruze. I think Cadillac could have done something more here to make it look a little bit more premium, a little bit more distinctive. And at the back, you can see, I think the rear end of the CT5 is better versus the CT4 that I tested a couple of weeks ago. I like the vertical stacked LED taillights. These are full LED, of course. You have the V-Series badge, of course, on the back. There's also a subtle little all-wheel drive badge to remind you this is all-wheel drive. And then down here, you can see the V's include this quad outlet exhaust finisher. It is just a trim piece, but the exhaust is specially tuned for this thing. Let me fire it up and let you guys hear it real quick. So the CT5-V certainly has an aggressive looking exhaust, but the big question is, how does it actually sound? Well, let's fire it up and hear it. Yeah, so we have a very soft limiter, and remember, this is a V6, the V8 is gone. You might want to wait for the Blackwing if you guys want a really big, nasty sounding engine. That's it.
What?
Huh?
That's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know. Remember how the old CTS V was bonkers.
I was expecting it to go at least to 4 or 5 grand.
No. It does make a very interesting noise though when you do the launch control on this thing. And of course, compared to that old 6.2 liter V8, that sound is pretty disappointing, but we'll save that part, of course, for the Blackwing V whenever that decides to be completely introduced. Now, opening up the trunk capacity, you can see the trunk has a pretty good size opening. It's rated at 11.9 cubic feet of space, which is pretty decent. But if you're gonna compare to some mainstream offerings, these are a little bit on the smaller end. But typically with the luxury class, they have smaller trunks because there's additional structural base bracing in here to make the chassis stiffer. The seats fold down in a 60/40 manner, and then there's a little bit of storage underneath the floor here. So just like the CT4 that I showed you guys in my last Cadillac review, the CT5's exterior design didn't really take too many risks. However, what about the interior of the CT5? Well, this one, as you can see, has a really nice two-tone combination, which they call Whisper Beige with the black. It's got red accents. It goes pretty well with the evergreen dark metallic that this particular one is painted in. And when you look at the interior at a glance, I actually think this is an improvement over the CTS that it replaces. Cadillac really kind of did away with all of those fingerprint sensitive black plastic panels. Instead, they've replaced it with some pieces that are still a shiny black, but they have kind of like a sparkly finish, and they also resist fingerprints on it. So that's a very nice thing that they did. The door panel, as you can see, has the same kind of two-tone with this really nice metal speaker for the 14-speaker Bose Performance Series audio system. When I shut the door, it has a relatively solid sounding thunk. This is still riding on the Alpha platform, which is a very great place to start now. Here's the key fob for the CT5. You can see it's the same newer key fob that I showed you on the CT4. It does include a remote start. You can open the trunk, lock, unlock, and panic. It's a pretty good sized key. It also has a nice, matte finish plastic on the outside to start it up. The engine start button is over here. And you can see the gauges do a nice sweep. This is a huge upgrade, of course, from the gauges in the ATS and in the CTS. You have an 8-inch helper screen in the center there that is optional. There's a 10-inch display here that's part of the Cadillac user interface, whatever. This is their latest system. It's a very nice looking screen. I also like how it's a tablet style screen, although I'm surprised that GM or Cadillac didn't go with a widescreen display, but this is one of the larger screens in the segment for sure. This particular one here, of course, has the 3-liter turbocharged V6. It doesn't really sound like much for a V model, especially compared, of course, to even the CTS V-Sport that I drove a couple years ago. That had a 3.6 liter engine, but we'll go into the test drive later on and we'll talk about that. Now, in terms of materials, you can see Cadillac introduced like a cut and sewn full leather stitching interior a few years ago. This is carried over here. You've got real genuine stitching and soft touch materials on the upper part of the dash. It kind of extends and covers over the passenger side of the dash as well. This is even a soft touch injection molded plastic. This screen, I kind of wish tilted up more. It seems like it's kind of pushed too far inward, which makes it a little bit harder to see and a little bit farther of a reach. The steering wheel, you can see, is a V-specific one. I do like how fat the rim is. This is very nice. It's got some nice high quality leather, perforated leather, although I wish they had used red contrast stitching here on the steering wheel and maybe even a flat bottom design. Perhaps they'll save that for the Black Series or the Blackwing. The steering wheel itself, you can see, is a tilt telescoping. It's a manual adjustment, which is typically the norm in this segment. You have metal magnesium paddle shifters, which are nice. They're mounted to the wheel instead of the column. The door panel has the same soft touch injection molded plastic with some carbon fiber trim, aluminum door handle here. The window switches, they actually have a pretty high quality tactile feel with some metal accents on them. You have your window controls here. It's automatic one touch for all four. You have 2-person memory seats, which, by the way, these seats are 14-way adjustable and they're pretty comfortable, and you can also have this squeeze in a little bit more, and you can also have the thigh extender come out if you'd like. They are heated and cooled seats. That's part of a premium package that my tester has, which is nice. I do think the headrests here are a little bit oddly proportioned, and I kind of wish Cadillac had put some kind of V emblem or embroidered into the actual headrest. It would have made it look a little bit sportier, a little bit classier. The gauges, as you can see, look great. You can kind of control what you want on that helper screen using these buttons over here on the steering wheel. You can see there's your music information, GPS, phone, settings, and then there's a V page that's all the way to the left. You can see it'll start off by showing you things like a G meter, performance timer, lap timer, coolant, oil temperature, oil pressure, transmission fluid, tire temperature, and then of course the E limited slip coupling, which shows you how much power is being appropriated to each side of the wheel when you're driving this thing aggressively. There's also a dedicated V button here. When you push that V button, you can see it puts a V mode there. This is basically a preset high performance driving mode where you can kind of go into the settings and change it if you'd like. Cadillac offers several different driving modes. You can see there's a touring, there's my mode, which is essentially another version of V mode where you can custom tailor it to your liking. There's a track, a snow and ice mode, of course. And then if you want, you can also go into your performance traction management, which by double tapping the stability control off button here, which takes way too long, you can see you have to do it in a specific sequence. Otherwise, that was like my 5th try, it doesn't do it. So like right now, it just says traction off, and I'm probably gonna have trouble getting it into performance mode later on, but I'll have to do that later. I really wish GM and Cadillac would redesign the way to get into the performance traction management. It shouldn't be this complicated. It's super annoying to do so. Now, putting the car into reverse, you can see there's the backup camera. It's super high resolution. My tester is missing the parking tech package, which would give you a full 360 camera and automatic parallel parking, but I'm happy to see Cadillac has completely upgraded that. That's a huge improvement. This also does include Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which you can see on the 10-inch display. It looks fantastic. You can see it puts up Waze right there in the screen. It's very high resolution again, very crystal clear, very easy to use. The screen also kind of resists fingerprint marks. There's a dedicated home button right here. There's a volume knob and a tuning knob there, which is fantastic. If you don't want to use Apple CarPlay, of course, you can use the built-in Cadillac GPS, which has been improved over the years. It's much quicker. So Cadillac has one of the best infotainment systems in the business now. And if you don't want to use the touchscreen, they also give you the option of this rotary controller here if you'd like. So it also gives you another volume knob here, a tuning area as well, and then the shortcut buttons over here to get you to whatever you'd like to get to. This controls the 10-speed automatic. It's a electronic shifter. And if you just kick it back twice, that goes into drive or manual mode. Park is that P button over there. This is fairly intuitive. It takes a second to get used to, and then once you do, it becomes intuitive, much more intuitive. There's a nice wireless phone charger pad over here, 2 cup holders right here, and then a nice storage area where you could put your phone here again. A very nice padded armrest here with a pretty good amount of storage. You have a USB-C, a regular USB, and an SD card reader over there. When you open this up, you can see the glove compartment's actually a pretty good size. It's damped and lined with felt, and my tester is missing the Platinum package, which would roll in a big panoramic sunroof. Without it, you can see you get slightly more headroom, but it is slightly darker in the cabin. The 14-speaker and Bose audio system sounds pretty good, but I would probably say that the Bang & Olufsen and Burmester and Bowers & Wilkins systems in the European competitors sound just a smidge better. But overall, the interior of the CT5, I like it more than the CT4. The V model, obviously has its own unique performance touches. I think that Cadillac could have done a little bit more to push the envelope here, but it is very easy to use. It feels relatively high quality, and it also is full of a lot of room to spread out. Now, one of the huge advantages with the CT5 being a tweener vehicle is the fact that the back seat is significantly more cavernous versus a lot of its competitors. Because this car is 194 inches long, you get basically more space in the second row here. Cadillac says you get around 38 inches of legroom back here, which is about 3 inches more than what you find in most of the vehicles in this segment. You can see at 5'7", I have a very good amount of headspace, very good legroom here. There is a large hump here because remember, this is a rear drive car, but you can see Cadillac gives you rear seat air vents back here, 1 USB-C charging port, a 12-volt power outlet there, and then 2 map pockets over here. I'm surprised I don't see things like separate rear seat climate control, so it only has a dual zone, not a tri-zone climate control. But you fold this down here, you got cup holders here, a nice armrest, and then the materials are also soft touch with more of that leather stitching. So if you guys are looking for a bigger back seat, this is the one you're gonna definitely want to choose. Okay, so Cadillac has obviously been busy completely redesigning their sedan lineup. First starting off, of course, with the CT6, now introducing the CT4, which I drove, wasn't super impressed with the engine in that car, but the CT5-V, even though this is not necessarily a full-on V, this is kind of the V-Sport replacement. I've been looking forward to driving the CT5 because instead of that 2.7 liter four-cylinder in the CT4 that I drove, this has the 3 liter twin turbocharged V6. Now this is a downgrade, of course, from the old CTS V-Sport, which had a 3.6 liter engine that had 420 horsepower. This is 360 horsepower, which sucks how it's less, 60 horsepower less, but this car is roughly $12,000 less expensive than the old CTS V-Sport. So I'll forgive Cadillac, of course, for downgrading the power, and they also say that you'll still get to 60 in around 4.6 seconds. That's only about 0.2 of a second slower than the CTS V-Sport, which was considerably, more expensive. Now, first impressions are pretty good. This has a very stiff and solid chassis. It has very direct and heavy steering that transmits a good amount of road feel to the steering wheel on what the front tires are doing. So that's, of course, all giving me a nice impression of quality here. Oh, really nice shift there. It has that nice little pop, the crackle, which I wasn't expecting actually. I mean, this is the V model, so I'm happy to see that Cadillac did, tune the exhaust to sound a little bit meaner. Now, of course, this is kind of an augmented noise. Keep that in mind. It doesn't sound like much from the inside, or the inside you can hear the fakeness. On the outside, it doesn't really sound like much. Now, this car does come with launch control, even though it's all-wheel drive, and well, lo and behold, I actually was able to put it into its competitive mode on the first try. I was struggling to do it earlier, you guys saw in the interior scene, but you have to double tap the traction control button in sequence, at just the right sequence, and it'll say competitive mode, and that's how you access the launch control. Once you do that, you just floor the brake and the accelerator. Ooh! Ooh! Very nice noise. Like that noise, and also it makes a nice little stutter noise as it bounces off the limiter. This thing will rev it up to around 3,500 RPM, and you heard it bounced off that limiter. It makes a really nice noise. It actually felt pretty quick off the line, but the quickness kind of started to fade away. Like, you could feel that this thing could use a little bit more horsepower. It's not slow by any means. 0 to 60, 4.6 seconds. I believe them. This is a pretty quick car. Especially for the money. I think that they've given us a lot of power here for the money. Keep in mind, however, the Audi S4, the BMW M340i, the Mercedes-AMG C43, they are all quicker. Acura's TLX Type S is going to also compete with this, so I am looking forward to driving that model as well. Cadillac does offer a lot in here. The 10-speed is very smooth. It also shifts pretty good. When I put my foot down here, floor it from while I'm coasting, it says performance shift active, and I have to say it could be a little quicker shifting there. Let's try the paddles here. Ooh, that's a nice little crack. I like that crack of the whip noise when it shifts. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, it's an augmented, noise that they've engineered to the exhaust, but who cares? I think it sounds great. I think that's what people really want today in performance sedans, so they've really gotten the noise down. I'm super impressed with the noise, especially considering how awful the 2.7 four-cylinder turbo sounds. This really makes up for that for me. I love the way this V6 sounds with that snappy 10-speed. It's not as quick, of course, as some of the best dual clutches or even the 8-speed ZF Auto that I've tested in some of the European competitors, but this is still a huge improvement over the old transmission in the CTS. Ooh. Very nice. You can feel how snappy the 10-speed shifts are. You can feel how it's geared really nicely for this engine as well. Nice sound coming from the exhaust. I mean, sure, if you're getting out of your CTS V and into this, you're going to be super disappointed. However, if you're just getting out of a CTS with the V6, the 3.6 V6, or a CTS V-Sport, this is going to be pretty darn close, and you're also going to be loving the savings. Cadillac really, made this car a lot less expensive, which is a huge deal, especially, for people nowadays. Cars are getting so expensive, and it's refreshing to see something like this a little bit cheaper this year as opposed to more expensive. Very nice. I wish the car actually told me that it was in launch control, but it's like a little hidden launch control mode that you have to find in the traction management. So I'll take it. I'll take the fact that they do that. With all-wheel drive, there's basically no drama when this thing launches. Now, of course, let's get it out of the traction management mode here. Let's just kind of drive this thing normally. This has the 4th generation of Cadillac's magno-rheological dampers. And I have to say, even in its most aggressive setting here, I'll put it into track mode here, this thing rides extremely comfortably. It always reminds you that you're in a Cadillac because it rides so smoothly. Even though it's in its harshest setting right now, it has a really comfortable and controlled ride. I'm super impressed with how soft this car still feels. Yeah, the steering gets very heavy. It's got these, high-performance Brembo brakes, which are going to bring you down to a stop. The transmission is even snappier and louder in the track mode, but I could daily it in track mode, so very, very impressive. Obviously, that Cadillac is able to do something like this, give us that dual personalities. It's one of the reasons why, you buy a vehicle like this, because it gives you that dual personality. And you know what? If you guys want rear-wheel drive, they do offer a rear drive model, which will save you around $2,000. My all-wheel drive tester will still kind of transmit more power to the back wheels, so it gives you that rear drive feeling. But, just like the Alpha platform before this car feels incredibly stiff. The Camaro is built off of the same platform, and you can really tell that the CT5-V is built by people who like driving, who like handling, who like stiff-feeling cars, who have great steering feel. This gives me hope for Cadillac because the rest of this car still doesn't stand out for me in the way that I'd like it to. However, the ride and handling, the suspension, the engine sound does stand out for me. And the price of this car, it is a relatively good deal that honestly was the biggest shock for me. I didn't realize that Cadillac had discounted this car so much compared to the previous generation. Really, my biggest gripe with this car still has to do with the fact that GM does not make active safety systems as standard. Like, for example, I have a driver awareness plus package that includes automatic emergency braking, side blind zone assist, lane change assist. That's optional. That should be standard. My tester is missing adaptive cruise control. That's an insult for the price that this car is at, because you can look at the competitors and it comes standard with all that. And I just don't understand why Cadillac is not making that as standard equipment. I just don't get it. I think they really need to rethink, their option strategy there. It's just really confusing for me. Visibility in this car is also pretty good though, so you don't really have to worry too much. If you guys know how to drive, you're going to get in this thing. You're going to really enjoy the way this car sounds and feels, and just how confident you feel when you're behind the wheel of the CT5. Really. Another area where I probably might ding the car is fuel economy. I've been averaging around 16 mpg in my week's worth of testing. It's rated at 1725. Please be sure to put premium gas in this thing, of course. Yeah, this car gets me very excited to drive the Blackwing version, because obviously the V is now a lot more approachable and not quite as scary as the old V. But I imagine the Blackwing model with its supercharged V8 is going to really put this chassis to its paces. It can handle a lot more power. Easily can handle more power. But wow, what a car. I wasn't expecting to like this car as much as I did, but if you guys are looking for a mid-size sports sedan like an S4 or an M340i or C43, and you want one of the best driving ones, the CT5-V should definitely make it to the top of your list. So Cadillac doesn't like to say that the CT5 is a direct replacement for the CTS, but after spending a week with the CT5-V, it's pretty easy to see where this fits in Cadillac's lineup. Even though this new CT5 is a couple inches shorter than the previous generation CTS, I find that this thing has just the right proportions. It has a really nice ride quality, an amazing ride quality actually, with that magno-rheological suspension. It's got a pretty nice interior with a lot of space in the back seat, more than what I found in the previous generation CTS, and I also really like the looks of this this thing, especially in this evergreen metallic exterior color. The V-Series gives you its own unique look. Really, as long as you keep your expectations in check, if you don't compare this thing to the old CTS V, the CT5-V is an enticing proposition if you guys are looking for a mid-size luxury sports sedan for the price of a compact sports sedan. I think that's where Cadillac has really shined here with this new generation sedan, because the CT5, the base model with the 4-cylinder 2-liter, starts at $36,800. That's $10,000 less expensive versus the old CTS, which is amazing to me. I don't know how Cadillac's been able to discount the price by that much. Now, of course, the V version starts a lot more, but still very reasonable. With the 3-liter twin turbo V6 and rear drive, this thing starts at around $47,000. Add $2,000 for my tester, which is all-wheel drive, so you're looking at just under $50,000. That's a pretty good amount of money for something that offers 360 horsepower, 0-60 in the mid 4.5-second range. That's pretty good. Now, of course, my tester, with all the options that it has, it's still missing some options. The premium package, the evergreen metallic color, the whisper beige luxury leather interior. This one stickers for a total of $58,600, which is actually pretty reasonable. I had an Audi S4 a couple months ago that I tested, which was around $64,000. So the Cadillac, keep in mind, if you add in the panoramic sunroof and the adaptive cruise control, and then later Cadillac will offer Super Cruise on this thing, will also be roughly in the mid $60,000 range, which again, it makes this thing right, I'd say average in terms of value, but I'm also very impressed in how much they've discounted it over the CTS. Really, for me, if you guys like the styling of this thing, you want a bigger back seat, you want something that's a little bit more different because you don't see very many of Cadillac's sports sedans out on the road, I think the CT5-V is definitely worth a look. But for those of you who are trading in your old CTS V, make sure you wait for the black wing, because this thing will probably disappoint you. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2020 Cadillac CT5-V. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.